Should you buy a PlayStation 2 in 2018? Now, many of y'all are already going to the comment section and typing yes, and I can understand why. This is one of the best-selling consoles of all time, if not the best-selling console of all time. I think it sold something like over 150 million units. If you're watching this video today, you fall into one of two categories. You're one of the over 100 million people who bought one of these, and you want to know, is it still good all these years later? Is it just your nostalgia? Or if you fall into the second category, you didn't own one of these back in the day. You're legitimately wondering, should I buy one? Is a PS2 right for you? Well, let's find out in today's videos. We go over three things, which of course are the hardware, the software, and then a few considerations you should have, mainly pertaining to the hardware, but big enough that they deserve their own section. But before I ramble on any longer, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves and let's dive right in to today's buying guide. Welcome to Stuff We Play, where for once we aren't talking about something Nintendo or Sega related. Hey, if that usual stuff sounds good to you, why not subscribe? And I guess this stuff too, since you're clearly watching this. So today we're talking about the PlayStation 2. What a fantastic console. Now, I will be honest, I didn't own one of these back in the day. My console of choice at that time was the GameCube, which, okay, not a very common choice, but I loved my GameCube, and I'm proud of that. But that doesn't mean I don't have some memories with the PlayStation 2. I do remember going over to a friend's house, and it was my next door neighbor at the time when I was a kid. He was my best friend all throughout elementary school. And he had an N64 and PS1. Why couldn't I think of that? But then one day, his older brother got this new game system, a PlayStation 2, and we weren't supposed to play it because we were little kids, and his brother was like 14 or something. And of course, because elementary schools got out before the middle schools or whatever, then we always typically sneak into his bedroom, and I think we'd play like, I remember once we played Grand Theft Auto, and my friend's dad caught us, and we got in a ton of trouble for that. His dad smashed the GTA disc. I guess with that, now that you know kind of my personal history, I didn't actually end up buying a PS2 until about 2008, I should mention. The only reason was I had to seek one of these out and play the awesome Megaman X8 and the terrible Megaman X7. So, hardware. The PlayStation 2 has two main revisions. There's the fat model, which came out launched back in 2001. What's important about the fat model is that it has a motorized disc tray. It's obviously a lot bigger than the later revision, and it actually has a place where you put, I think, a hard drive, but I know for sure a modem, so you can actually play games online and stuff, which is cool. Then later on, and this is the model that I most commonly saw, was the PlayStation 2 Slim. Now, both of these consoles normally came in black. I don't know when this silver version came out. This is what I have now, and I really do like it. And I'm going to put it down so I don't drop it. I just really love the small design. The PS2 Slim is even, well, slimmer than a Wii. You can fit in such a small space, especially if you put it on its side. And the thing is too, is these systems aren't very expensive. Granted, the price has gone up over the past few years, and I feel like that's because when I got my PS2, it was right at the end of that generation. It was, you know, the kind of a few years into the PS3 360 Wii generation. At that point, people couldn't give these away. Nowadays, though, a PlayStation 2 in Canada, at least, will run you about $50 for a system from a reputable game store. Though granted, because the system sold so amazingly well, you can find it at pretty much any garage sale or flea market you go to. The hardware is all good and all, but what about the games? Well, the PlayStation 2 has a fantastic library of games. Now, let me be honest here. The PS2, on the whole, is probably my least favorite console out of that generation, mainly because being a Sega guy, I love the Dreamcast. Being as I had the GameCube, I love the GameCube. And the original Xbox, because no one loves the original Xbox, everything's dirt cheap and I love collecting for it. But granted, games for the PS2 are like only slightly more. Like if a game is $5 on the OG Xbox, it'll be like $5.50 on the PS2. All the games, like I can't think of any expensive games on the PS2. Everything's cheap and everything Okay, not everything. There's a lot of crap, of course, but there's a lot of good stuff. I have fond memories playing Gran Turismo 4. While this is a series I've never personally played, my buddy the Golden Bolt will wholeheartedly recommend stuff such as Ratchet and Clank. Grand Theft Auto was at its prime in this generation. Starring GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas, my favorite GTA game still to this day. I know GTA 5, technically has a bigger world, but San Andreas had the world that felt the biggest to me. Megaman X8 is a very good game. It's a lot of fun. There's more armors than your usual Megaman X game. It has 6 playable characters. It's a fantastic way to end the series and something I'd really recommend you try if you enjoy Mega Man. But what I feel like really sets the PS2 above and beyond is that along with all this, it's backwards compatible with the PlayStation 1. Every single PS1 game I've ever tried works on it. Regardless, I think you get the point. The PS2 had over 1,000 games and a lot of them are really, really damn good. So what's that mystical third thing? The thing I mentioned having something to do with reliability. Well, that's the one thing that might stop you from buying a PS2. These things ain't reliable. Now, I've talked about problems with systems before, systems such as the Sega Game Gear having to be recapped or the TurboGrafx CD having bad capacitors, but the PS2's issue isn't a capacitor problem, it's a disk drive. I noticed the disk drives constantly go out. Now, my personal PlayStation 2 back in Texas I've had since 2008, and I have had to get the disk drive replaced once in it. I forget what aspect it was, I think it was like the little lens reader thing. So yeah, but what about this one? This one belongs to Elliot. You've seen him in around channel. He had gotten his first PS2 around the same time I did, a little before, back in 2007. And it worked fine and all, but the disk drive started to get a bit iffy and iffier until finally last year it just stopped reading discs. So I went out and got a second one. Granted, the second one I don't feel like was the fault of PS2 itself, but rather the store I bought it from. PSA, never buy from a game exchange, because they said the system was cleaned and tested. It worked for a week, then it stopped reading discs, and he opened it up and it had literal dust and webs and stuff. So as I said, I guess that one was less PlayStation 2 itself and more game exchange just being incredibly dishonest. This one I bought from Epic Games and More, a very honest, reputable game store. But I've had so many problems before, legit, I was like this thing's cleaned and tested and right? He was like, yeah, you want to try it out? So yeah, I tried this out in the store just because supposedly it's not too difficult to fix them. But then again, I'm not really one who trusts himself fixing electronic stuff. So unless you know someone who is comfortable with fixing electronics, or you yourself are capable of it, you might want to pass up on this. So that's my final thoughts. Should you buy a PlayStation 2 in 2018? I almost said 2017. It definitely has a lot of history, but it might not be reliable. Now there is, of course, an emulation option, I'm sure, but I don't care much for it. If you're watching this video, you've probably already, decide, nah, I want to do something a bit more in emulation. But something I haven't mentioned yet is that the first model of the PlayStation 3 can play PS2 games. Why haven't I mentioned it before and I'm just giving it a brief aside now? Because only the very first launch models. If I remember correctly, every single model of the PlayStation 3 has PlayStation 1 backwards compatibility, but only the very first ones have PS2 backwards compatibility. And those launch model PS3s are now a bit on the expensive side. They're getting more expensive. Apparently they have reliability issues as well. I've never tried one. I can't speak for how well they play PS2 games. So should you buy one overall? If you're willing to take the risk on reliability. If you can buy from a game store that you know is reputable and if the price is right, I wouldn't pay more than, I feel like the $50 market value right now, there's a ton of fantastic games on it. But if you buy it from a game store you aren't familiar with and that has dodgy reviews, or if you buy it from a flea market or something, be cautious. Don't buy a PS2 and then be shocked if it doesn't work and be like, oh, that stuff we play jackass said to buy it. As far as I'm concerned, this is one of the most unreliable game consoles I've ever used. Perhaps I'm just rambling right now. Perhaps I'm just spouting this thing and other, and you disagree with me, or perhaps you do agree with me, and perhaps I'm going to put this down again, because I'm really talking with my hands. Go ahead, leave me your thoughts if you should buy a PlayStation 2 down in the comment section down below, And while you're at it, subscribe to Stuff We Play for more great, consistent content like this. So with that, thank you very much for watching. It's a pleasure. Stay classy, and I will see you next time.